about we're talking about I thought it was gonna let me all right, so we're talking about net worth. Net worth is talking about when you have assets and you subtract your liabilities. That's how you will get your net worth. So, what does that mean and what does that look like? It look like everyone is present today. Awesome. So, your assets are things that you own and that brings you value. Your liabilities are your expenses. This pen doesn't work. And your net worth is what your value is after you have subtracted your expenses. So we're going to talk about what does your assets really look like. So when we talk about your assets is an item or an amount of money that you own. Examples can be like your cash, any of your investments, your house value. And if you own like a business that's profitable, you can say that's your asset too. So your business. Your liabilities is the amount of money that you owe to a financial institution. So, like if you owe any student loans, if you have any credit card debt, or really like any type of loan, it doesn't have to just be student loan, but any loan will count as a liability. So we're going to categorize the items. What's your asset and what's your liability? So go through, and if it's an asset, you're going to put an A. If it's a liability, you're going to put an L. So like your house, the current value. Yes, you might be paying a mortgage on it, but if it has value in your house, it's an asset. Student loans, we know that's a liability. Credit card debt, that's a liability. What about when you pay off your car? Is that an asset or a liability? It's an asset. What about your furniture? Asset. Savings account. Yep. Retirement. And then your automobile with a loan. That's a liability until you pay it off. Now, the only thing about when it's an automobile, understand that if your car has value, because there are certain cars that appreciate as they get older and they're in great shape, those then turn into assets because they still have a value. But a lot of cars that people ride around that's all nice and flashy and they're paying these expensive notes, they're liabilities. All right, so let's practice. Tanisha gathers all of her financial information in order to prepare her will. Categorize the various assets and liabilities in the table below. Then we're going to construct a net worth statement. So what our net worth statement is, tell them to go to Canvas. What our net worth statement is, one second, I have to also give you the paper from yesterday. The net worth statement, that is where we're gonna like put on there the difference of like what's our asset and what's our liability. So for example, house, the current value is $75,500. Will we write that under our asset or our liability? Asset. So go ahead and add that onto your asset. So you're going to write house as the name, and then the value, you're going to put the amount there. I understand you enjoy saying that, but please stop. Let's mature just a little bit. No, we're not writing A. We're going to actually write the word. We're going to write house and what the value of that is under the asset. Give me just a second and I'll write it on there.
Or I could just cut it just point to homework.
The video is in there. You just need to complete everything for income tax. You can write that on there. All right. Thank you for your patience. So here, the item that we're writing. So we'll say it's our house. Our value was $75,500. Our car current value, it's a positive value. So we're going to say our car, and we're going to write $8,920. Credit card debt, that's a liability. So I'm going to say CC, and we're going to put the $30,175. Student loan, that's a debt. So student loan, we're going to put $75,630. That's a lot of money to owe. What about her checking account? Is that an asset or a liability? It's an asset. So we're going to say her checking account. She has $2,410. Her furniture and jewelry, so I'm going to say F and J, is only $800. So once we distinguish what's our assets and our liabilities, we have to sum them up. Sum means to add. So we're going to add up all the values and get a total for each one of them. So go ahead and add up her assets, and then we need to add up her liabilities. And you're going to write your values there. So take a second, add them up. Take a second and add them all up, please. When you've already added them up and have them on your paper, do a quick thumbs up so we know what we are. Wait, what? She's back? Oh. All right. Do we have an asset sum? Do we have our total? Okay, I see 2 people. Let's get a couple more people. Okay. DeLawrence, what did you get? What happened? For when you added up all of this? Okay, Andrews, let me help you. Yes, ma'am. No problem. I need you for a second.
That's me?
Oh, me? No.
Almost the office?
She said come to our office right now. All right. What did you get, Jeremy, for your total? Okay. And what did you get? So 87,630. So again, this is going to push us in our ability to add. Is that what you got? No? So we can go through and make sure that these are the numbers, but that's what I got when I added them up. So again, it's important to line up our numbers. So when all our zeros, we should get a 0. When we go to the next one, we have 2 and 1. That's 3. Then when we go to the next one, we have 5 and 4, that's 9. So 9 and 9 is 18. 18 plus 8, 18, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. This is what I got. Now I got to calculate. Let me see. We have 9 and 4, that's 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. So the 6 carry the 2. So 5, 6, 7. 7 plus 8 is 15, 16, 17. So 7 carry the 1. And so that's where the 8. Do we see where now we see why she got that? And I wanted to show it because I'm telling you, net worth gets you every time if you don't add correctly. I don't know. But let's go to the liabilities. So what did we get for liabilities? Yes, Davion. You said 55,000? Okay, so you did just add them up, right? Okay, do we have anybody else have a different number for liabilities? Yes, Mackenzie, what did you get? Yes, 105,805. So now that we have the sums of the assets and liabilities, remember at the beginning, it showed us that we will have to take our assets, subtract our liabilities to find out what our net worth is. So when we go to do that, when we go to subtract these two numbers, we're looking at 87,630 minus 105,805. So if we look at it, we already know we're going to be a negative because our bigger number is what we're subtracting, right? So we know whatever it is going to be a negative. So we can now we know it's negative. We can set it correctly where we're going to take the bigger number and subtract the smaller one. And no, I'd rather you do it by hand if you're going to work it out. So when we do that, we have 105, 805, and we're subtracting 87,630. I know these are big numbers, but money is big numbers. So 5 minus 0 is 5. 0 minus 3, we can't do that. So we'll pull and say, we can't do, we make this 7, make this 10. 10 minus 3 is 7. 7 minus 6 is 1. 5 minus 7, we can't. So I'm going to pull from this whole 10 and make that 9 and make this 15. 15 minus 7 is 8. 9 minus 8 is 1. So it's going to be negative 18,175. Now, if you notice, all I did was take my time and subtract. Take your time and subtract. When you rush, that's when you mess up. I still subtract this very same way. I'm not doing it for camera. I'm doing it for exactly. This is what I do. When I'm adding, I just add them up. When I'm subtracting, I just subtract them. Take your time and you won't go wrong. But that's the value. So she really doesn't have nothing to leave people but debt because she has a negative net worth. Let's go to the next one. Negative 1,000. Right. So Diego is preparing a spreadsheet with his net worth. He accidentally deleted the value associated with his student loan. Use the information in the table to determine how much Diego owes in student loan. So now we need to find out how much does he owe in student loan. So the first thing we need to do is calculate his assets. So now we need to go ahead. So that's number 1. We need to add the assets. So when we look here, we're going to just put A or L next to what's an asset and what's not. His liability, that's an asset, personal loan. And you notice they give you a negative, letting you know this is a liability. Student loan, we don't know this. So this is like our X, right? Or this is something we're looking for. And then checking account is going to be his asset. So we know his student loan, that's going to be a liability, even though we don't know. All right. So we got to add up the money that's the asset. So right now we know we have 110,600. We have 9,550 and the checking account of 6450. So we got to add these numbers up. Make sure you line your numbers up correctly. That's 10. So I carry the 1. That's 6 and 4. That's 10. That's 15 and 1. That's 16. So 6, carry the 1. That's 9 and 1. That's 10 and 6. That's 16. Carry the 1. 1 and 1. That's 2. And then the 1. So now that I have what his assets are, I need to subtract his liabilities that we know of. So that 1, we add the asset. Number 2, we're going to subtract the liability. So I'm going to subtract the 18,000. So when I look, if you're not good at lining up your numbers, start writing them from the back. So 0, 2, 2, 8, 1. So I'm subtracting this. 0 minus 0. I got to borrow. 10 minus 2 is 8. 5 minus 2 is 3. 6 minus 8, I got to borrow. So that's 16 minus 8 is 8. 1 minus 1 is 0. And then 1. So this is how much money or value he currently has. Okay? So now that I have this, this is what we will call his net worth. So my third step now is I have to subtract the net worth. Because I found a net worth, but they also gave me a net worth. This is what they gave us because we're missing a number. So the moment I subtract these two net worths, let me make it clear. The moment I subtract these two net worths, I then should get whatever is missing, his student loan number. So I'm going to just subtract them, and it doesn't matter which one you want, just the bigger one to be on top because I want the difference. So 108, 380 minus 62, 480. This is why I saved this one for last because I know it's going to be a lot of subtracting and a lot of adding. So I got to borrow, make this 7, make this 13. 13 minus 4 is 9. 7 minus 2 is 5. And then I don't like to say 0, but I'll say 10 minus 6 is 4. So the value that's missing for his student loans is 45,900. It took us a minute to get there, but we got there. And this is why it's important. I need you to write these 3 steps. Add your assets, subtract your liabilities, and then subtract your net worth. We do these, we will never go wrong. So everything we have for the duration is practice. So if you still need to write these down, I'm going to leave it here for a second, and you're going to turn your paper over so we can practice. Yes, sir. Go for it. I'll wait till you all get it written down. Like which way?
My mind interprets number 1 as Liberty is
Calculated her net worth. Her assets has a total 87,545. Her liabilities have a total of 32,158. What is her net value or net worth? So what do we do with those two numbers?
I kept thinking this was short for that for some reason.
Oh, yep. You just, oh, no, it's not. Okay, so are we all done writing this down so I can turn it over? Are you working? Okay. All right. So when I turn it over, let's look at number 1. So Libby is calculating her net worth. They give us what her asset is. So here's her asset, and here's her total liability. How would I find her net worth here?
You subtract the asset to the liability.
That's it. You just subtract these two numbers. So remember, we always want to subtract your asset, subtract your liability. So you're looking at 87,545, subtract 32,158, and you should get an answer. Let's look at number 2. It says a financial planner is working with a client. She tells her client that her net worth, so I have my net worth is 105,630. If she has a total liability of 89,243, what is her asset? So remember, we know the equation for this. We know that our asset minus our liability will give us our net worth, correct? So we know the net worth is 105,630. We know the liability is 89,243. Only thing I don't know is the asset. So what do I need to do with the liability to find the asset? Do I subtract it to get it to the other side? You add the liability because that's the only way for us to get it to the other side, right? Because if I was to add it to both sides, this will leave, and then I can add it over here. So when you add these two numbers together, you should get her asset. Make sense? Okay, so if I already know my net worth and I know my liability, remember when I'm looking for my assets is your asset is minus your liability. So how can I find out? It's an equation. Because look at it if I just looked at the letters. A minus L equals N. If I want to get A by itself, what would I do to my L to get L to the other side? I will add it to the other side. So A then will be equal to N plus L. Does that make sense? So isn't that exactly what we're doing here? Exactly. If I'm looking for the A, which is the asset, that's all I'm doing. So for the next one, it says use the table to determine the worth of the Rascals family. So go through this side first and write A or L to determine what's your asset and what's your liability. Write your total asset, total liability, and then subtract them to get your net worth.